Hello, welcome back. It's week 60 on Out on That Line. I'm Geoff with my co-host Alex. Alex, how you doing this week?
Geoff, we're going to make this one extra sloppy.
Yes, we have Sloppy Jane and her new album, Madison. And we're going to talk about that one a little later. But we have something else that we need to talk about first. And it is December officially as we record this here on December 1st. You'll be hearing this on Monday, December 6th. Am I taking a shot in the dark there? Is that correct?
Oh, God. What's today? The 1st?
Today's the 1st. Thursday the 2nd. Friday the 3rd. Dang. Look at that.
Shit, right in the pocket, Geoff. Well done.
Yeah. Whew. Man, you can't start any better than that. So
Math
we're gonna keep this baby going. Yeah. So it's going to be time for our end of the year episode. So we are going to be going over some of the best and some of the worst, some of the interesting things that happened in the world of music this year as we close out 2021. Man, if you blinked, you missed it, huh? This year really flew by, didn't it?
Oh, my God. Life is hell.
Oh, and we'll be reviewing the Omarion variant soon, I'm sure. And why it's going to lead to more concert cancellations and all that fun kind of stuff. But that's 2022's problem. Right now, we're worried about what happened in 2021. So last chance, folks. Seriously, truly, last chance. If you had something that you loved in music this year, tell us about it. If you had something you hated in music this year, tell us about it. Even if you hated us, and that was what you hated about music this year, tell us about it. We probably won't talk about it. We'll probably cry a little bit on our own, but just tell us about it. You can do it through our Instagram. You could do it through our Twitter. You could do it through email at our Gmail. Whatever way you want to do it. Hop in those YouTube comments. Whatever you want to do. If you heard something this year that you can't get out of your head, tell us, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and again, if you're going to talk shit about us, then we're going to absolutely attack you personally. So keep that in mind when you just try to be cheeky and pull the wool over our eyes. It's not going to fucking work, okay?
Yeah, you hear that, Tanner? You hear that? Don't even try it.
Ashley, Brandon, all the usual suspects. We're using your government names.
Yeah.
You are outed, my friends. You're done.
Yeah, don't worry. We just need you to know that we're serious. That when you go back and listen to this, you'll know you were warned. So if you give us some bullshit for this end of the year playlist, end of the year podcast, it's going to come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
I promise you that. Like the ghosts of podcasts past. It is the holiday season, and we will be coming for you.
This podcast, you point out the year that was 2021. Might I remind everybody that this podcast was forged in the fires of a pandemic, okay?
Yes.
This is like what they say about like it's a junkyard cat. It was birthed in a puddle of gasoline and walked through hell and, didn't catch fire. It's a tough son of a gun. That's what this podcast is, okay? Mm-hmm. We didn't have this before when we were living in Brooklyn and Austin, living our best lives, eating vegan fucking soup. We didn't form it when life was a luxury. We formed it when times got hard. And these are hard times. And we are hard men who are perfect for these hard times. So don't fuck with us. And in exchange, I will bleep out everyone's government name so we can all be square. How about that?
See, we can be benevolent as well.
I like to think so. I like to remember.
Best of both worlds.
Every time I forget what the word human means, I decide it's time to probably try to do something benevolent.
You got to center yourself once in a while.
Yeah.
And it is the holiday season, so you got to do it. I got a question for you.
Ooh, okay.
Did you listen to Alice's Restaurant on Thanksgiving?
No.
Like a good little white boy?
No, I don't do that. I'm sorry. This is an exclusive for Tanner too. I feel really bad. He loves it. He gets very fired up for it. I think I've gotten like 5 minutes into it before I turn it off. It doesn't do it for me.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad we made it to 60 episodes. Yeah, at least we can hang our hat on that.
I really thought you were about to take that sweet, delicate little turn into agreeing with me, and you didn't. You really subverted my expectations.
I happen to love that song.
It's not bad, I guess. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, apparently you can't get everything you want at Alice's restaurant because Alex won't listen to it.
No, I have no context for what happens for 3/4 of the song.
Oh my God. Well, it's about a restaurant. If you want a synopsis here, it's about a restaurant. There's some garbage that gets thrown down a hill. The restaurant used to be owned by Alice, but she's not really there anymore. So you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant except for Alice. There's some jail time involved. There's a sheriff, some ne'er-do-wells, lots of stuff going on, but it's a really beautiful Thanksgiving story and a holiday that doesn't get a lot of love musically.
Wait, am I mistaken?
There's some joke songs.
Am I mistaken, or do they eat people in Alice's restaurant?
No, they do not eat people in Alice's restaurant.
Are you positive?
Well, not in the cannibalistic sort of way, but I'm sure the other sort of way has happened before.
Well, Jeff, how you go blue like this on a family show?
Well, like I said, you get anything you want at Alice's restaurant, okay? So if you go there wanting that, that's what you're going to get.
Okay. I'm in.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying it's an underrated holiday as far as music goes. It needs to get a little more love. And I realized that Alice's restaurant and that Adam Sandler Thanksgiving song are really the only two that we've got.
I was just about to say the Adam Sandler one, and once you said it, that's it. Gone. Nothing. I can't think of anything else.
That's all there is. Was there one? I think Charlie Brown did the Thanksgiving special. Did they have a special theme song for that?
Some creepy children's choir thing, probably.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was probably instrumental or some weird bullshit like that. I hate that.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to, speaking of instrumentals, we're going to have one to talk about. Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. Let's put a little bow on this segment here. So get us your nominations, your thoughts about your favorite things that happened to music this year. Get it to us quickly, because right now is the deadline that we set, December 1st. But we decided that we're going to kind of push back the recording of it a little bit. So you bought yourselves a little more time, folks. So get those submissions in. Hopefully they're in time. If they're not, we'll tell you that we've already recorded and you're shit out of luck. And maybe you can be a little on the ball next year more than you were this year. Just keep that in mind, folks. But get us those submissions so that we can have a banger episode to close out 2021. It'll be our second annual year-end episode. Can you believe that?
I love that. I love that as a tradition. I like that we have an awards show to end the year. It's perfect.
Yeah. And it's a pretty prestigious one, if I do say so myself.
Oh, I would have to agree with you, Jeff.
Yeah. What are we calling the awards?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
You could always go like, what do they call the awards in The Office, Dunder Mifflin, the Dundies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can get like the Lineys. That sounds like a cocaine production award instead.
Or like somebody just doesn't know how to say limeys.
Yeah, there you go.
What would we call them? Because I mean, like the Recording Academy or whatever, it's called the Grammys. Like, what's that stand for? Like the Oscars? That doesn't have anything to do with the name of the academy that gives them out, right?
I mean, I don't know where Oscar comes from, but through context clues, I have to imagine Grammy comes from the fact that the award is shaped like a gramophone. And like, we're going to give them a Grammy, a little gramophone. We're going to give them a Grammy for all the great work that they did. I think that might be what that is.
Dang, you're right. You're right. That's exactly what it is. Well, yeah. What do they get? Maybe they named Oscar after some. So what do we want to call them?
Well, yeah. What are we theoretically giving out? Because that'll inform it. If it's like a rubber dog turd, I guess it would be like the turdy. I don't know. Just spitballing.
We could. Well, let's just say turdies is the placeholder name unless we come up with something better.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. Well, tune in to our year-end episode to see who gets the turdies.
Oh, what do the good people get?
Shinier turdies.
There you go. The golden turdy.
The artist of the year gets the golden turdy.
Oh, this is awesome. This is so awesome.
So when we as a podcast, comment the little turd emojis on artists' posts, they're gonna know that that's an award. That's not telling them that they're shit. It's an award.
Yes. They'll know what it means.
They'll understand. Yeah, they'll understand because they're gonna hear this. They're gonna hear this explanation that we're giving, so they'll know.
I know for a fact Doja Cat listens to this podcast. You can't ask me how I know that, but I know for a fact that she does.
It's like when you can sense when you're looking at the same moon as someone else. Like you just get that feeling, like you can see their reflection in the moon when you're looking at it as well. So you know that they're looking. It's that same feeling that you get with Doja Cat, I assume.
Yeah, it's that connection where we're both looking at pictures of Doja Cat, and that's our equivalent of the moon.
Oh, well, that's a good place for both of you to be. Really.
I think so.
Yeah, it's a benefit all around. Well, what do you say we get in to a little sloppy Jane?
Let's slop them up.
All right. So this one was a suggestion by you, and I was gonna ask why, and I'm still gonna ask why. But after I listened to it and heard how weird it is, I was like, now I know exactly why he suggested this one. But I'm gonna let you tell us a little bit more about it.
Again, it's all my relationship with Spotify. I am an absolute wild card. Like we just did our Spotify Wrapped. Like the algorithm broke trying to categorize everything.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as
your top 5. Read me your top 5 artists from this year.
Oh, fuck. My phone's charging by the wall.
Okay.
If you want to entertain the people for a riff, I could probably go get it.
Okay, do it. I'll read off mine. How about that? Because I have my Wrapped as well. So let me pull that up here. I can already tell you, spoiler alert, Coheed and Cambria is on my top 5.
Shocked.
Number 1 for like the 15th or 16th year in a row. However long Spotify has existed, that's how long Coheed and Cambria has been number 1 in my Wrapped list. So without further ado here, so it goes Coheed and Cambria number 1. I'm going to go from 5 down to 2 here and make it a little more interesting. So number 5, Tyler Childers.
Oh.
Number 4, Sturgill Simpson. Number 3, Turnstile. Number 2, Against Me.
Oh.
Yes. And number 1, Coheed and Cambria. My top 5 songs were 3 Coheed songs and 2 Turnstile songs.
Oh my God. Wow. You really, Spotify knows, loves, and trusts you.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. All right. Let me get mine here.
Give the people what they want.
All right. I had to screenshot it. Okay. Here we go. It decided that my top genre was indie rock, even though my top artists are Olivia Rodrigo, Lingua Ignota, Dr. Dog, Doja Cat, and somehow Illuminati Hotties. I hammered that album enough, I guess.
Damn.
Because that's from 5 to 1. I got Doja, Dog, Illuminati Hotties, Lingua, Olivia Rodrigo.
So Illuminati Hotties made it to 3.
Yeah.
That's great, because Turnstile, like when I did that singles video for Turnstile,
yeah,
that was the first time I'd ever heard them. So that was, 2 months ago. So it was the same thing. You just hammered them.
Crush. That's insane. Yeah. That's insane that it made up such a huge bulk of your year end.
Yeah.
Wow.
But also think about the amount of variety that we have to listen to do the podcast, where it's like, if it was just me, I'm sure Strand of Oaks would have been up there because I would have had more time to listen to like more of the things that I choose to go to myself rather than what we choose for the podcast. And like a lot of times what we choose for the podcast, I end up listening to a ton. Like Illuminati Hotties, I'm honestly surprised that they didn't crack the top 5, because I think I listened to that album like probably 9 or 10 times. It was pretty substantial. But it's like very interesting how an album can strike you like that. And, I wonder, is that going to make it a top album of the year for me? Who knows? I guess people got to tune in to find out.
Yeah. We don't want to give any playful secrets here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I took us on a massive detour of like, how did you find this? Spotify legitimately like does not know what to. It's like, how can I please you, and just throws everything at me. So I tend to go based on like how weird the name is and what the cover art looks like to prioritize like what I dive into. And I saw this and I was like, okay, this looks cool. It's got kind of that like, Dragon Riders of Pern kind of 90s fantasy font. It's this weird backlit image of this woman in a cave with a creepy little plastic horse. I'm like, this is interesting. And then you dive in and immediately I was like, I got to see if Geoff wants to do this.
And I did. I did want to do it. This was, I'm just going to get it right out there. And this is maybe something that you drew a comparison to as well, but Kate Bush.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like I heard a ton of that in this album. And I was expecting this to be more along the lines of like Julian Baker or like that kind of style of like the indie country sort of kind of singer-songwriter type stuff. And that was not it at all. This was much closer to, was it Heather Trost?
Yes.
And what was the name of that album? Because it was, I don't have it pulled right up here. I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Shit.
The album that we reviewed for it.
Yeah.
It gave me like it was so much more similar to that than anything I expected it to be.
Yeah. It's, so you say like, oh, it didn't really have anything in common with like the indie girls like Julian Baker and Phoebe Bridgers, which is interesting because like I do hear Phoebe Bridgers in certain moments.
Phoebe specifically, yeah.
Yeah. Like there's even a part where I'm like, that reminds me a lot of Kyoto. But it's not, you're right. It's not, it only like lapses into an indie rocker girl sound in certain areas. And that's where I'm really reminded of Phoebe Bridgers, who used to play bass when Sloppy Jane was more of a like punk outfit. Phoebe Bridgers played bass for her a bunch. And Phoebe Bridgers, her imprint, Satisfactory, through Dead Oceans, that's the record label that this was released on.
Got it.
So there's a big Phoebe Bridgers presence. Yeah.
Yeah, full circle. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
But this is some wild shit. It definitely has Kate Bush and Phoebe Bridgers, and it's Baroque, it's classical, it's cosmic country. Like it just dips into so many different things, but overall just has this like giant chamber music sound to it. And that is because she recorded this fucking thing in a cave in West Virginia.
Oh my God. For real?
Yes. Lost World Caverns in West Virginia.
You know what? I think I've been there.
Have you really?
I've been to, it probably actually wasn't that, but I've definitely been to caverns in the like Appalachian area. Maybe it was in Virginia, but I used to have a sweatshirt that was like from the gift shop at these caverns from when I was little. I'll have to ask my dad what it was called. Maybe it wasn't in West Virginia, but I definitely didn't come up with this album after I went there. So she got something out of it that I didn't. That's for sure.
Geoff got shit on by a bat. That was pretty much it. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like they recorded from 3 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the caves, and the pianos took a day to move underground. And because of the humidity, the recording equipment had to be in a car up above the cavern, and they would run wires down through a hole into the fucking bottom of the cave where they were making this. 21 musicians assembled to make a fucking album in a cave.
Holy
if that is
shit.
not the most me thing you've ever heard in your life, then you don't know me at all.
That is some over-the-top shit.
It's flamboyant. It's ostentatious. It's opulent. It's audacious. I have so many words for it, Geoff, but in truth, it really just is.
Yeah, well, it starts right out. I mean, Overture, and this is out on that line first. I'm pretty sure, choosing an instrumental song as one of the ones that we're going to talk about.
I think so.
Yeah, I can't remember any other time we've done that.
No, me either.
Yeah, so Overture is the first song. One of your picks. Hit it.
I thought this was an important one to pick because of the fact that it is an overture. And what is the function of an overture? It's to get the people in their seats, get you settled, warm you up, give you themes that you're going to hear throughout the rest of the piece, I'm thinking specifically musical theater, because that used to be my
Mm-hmm.
world for a while. And the overture here does what I'm going to reference our old pal Pearl Charles, does what the Pearl Charles album tricked me into doing. I listened to Only for Tonight and I said, oh, it's like a country disco cosmic gumbo. I can't wait. And it wrote me a check that the rest of the album couldn't cash. But here, the overture immediately lets you know exactly what's going on
Mm-hmm.
in this album. And it's not going to be like anything you've heard, but it's not inaccessibly weird.
Yeah. I liked it. So, because I'm going to bring up Coheed here.
Yes.
And don't worry, it's going to tie in. And I don't know if you've listened to enough Coheed where you know about the Coheed theme. And I say that in air quotes. But it's most present, and where I think you've most likely heard it is the In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth album, the first song, when he answers the phone, he says, "Hello, Apollo, where should I begin?" And then it goes into this instrumental, and it's like dun 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 dun, and that is repeated so much throughout all of the albums in that Amory Wars story arc. Like through that album, the end of the album, the outro, like when it gets into the hidden track on that album, even into the next album, the first in the Good Apollo series, like that theme goes through. So when she did this, and I didn't know that this was going to happen until I'd listened to the whole album all the way through and heard those themes kind of over and over again. And it was such a good way, just like you said, to warm you up, even though it's an instrumental and you're like, is this an orchestral album? And at first I was like, why did he send me this? Is like this how the whole thing is going to be? Because I hadn't looked up anything to see if there was any lyrics. I got through the first song and I was like, weird. Okay, an instrumental. And then the first one doesn't start right out with lyrics either. And I was like, what in tarnation is going on here? But it was such a good lead in because one, it was interesting. We're not used to hearing that kind of stuff for the albums that we do. And two, it really does do exactly what you say. It really sets the mood for the whole album, even though musically, there's stuff that's off the wall and stuff that's nothing like the orchestral beginning of the album, but it's all like very well thought out, like every single bit of it. I heard a lot of even Tom Waits in it, especially in one of the songs that we're going to talk about later. It just was an album that could have gone wrong in so very many ways and just doesn't. It's just, I love this new wave of these young artists, and I don't know how young she is, or if it's really a full band. It's really just one person that kind of does
Haley Dahl,
all of it, right? Yeah. And has probably, I'm sure, like a familiar rotating cast of musicians like Tim Showalter does with Strand of Oaks, or like Phoebe Bridgers does with her band, that same kind of thing. But it's like very much could have gone way, way wrong. But this vision, I feel like she just held it all together. And what a big thing. Like, look at what happened with Casey Musgrave's Star-Crossed and how ambitious that was, and that's an example of where things like, I don't think it went totally wrong. I think I liked that album more than you did, but like it just didn't go as well as it should have or could have. It seemed like she was maybe stretched too thin. I feel like Sloppy Jane, they put this together and knew exactly what they needed to do, knew exactly how it needed to be put together, knew they were going to get weird, and just went for it. They were like, the only way it's going to work is if we absolutely put the pedal to the floor and go for these ideas. And they did, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it was just a really cool experience all the way through. Nothing like what I normally listen to. Absolutely nothing like what I normally listen to, but it was just a very enjoyable little experience.
Well, and you talk about the Coheed theme that goes through the Amory Wars storyline. And why that's so cool is it's creating a whole. It's creating a world. It's threading through all of these different plot lines and songs and albums and what have you, and building an extended universe. And to a much simpler degree, since it's one album, that's what's going on in Madison, is it basically is like a hybrid musical, but like a very classically inclined one, like an operetta, like a Gilbert and Sullivan, but it's not absurd, because none of this is tongue-in-cheek. This is all extremely straightforward for Haley Dahl. It's exactly what you're talking about. It is a vision right down the middle, and she goes for it, and it's not like, oh, wouldn't it be crazy if I did this? She's just taking it as it comes and representing it as it is in her mind, takes it completely seriously, and that's why the whole thing sings. It's perfectly structured. It's fucking off the wall of the cave, Geoff. The cave in which it was recorded.
I wonder, is there like video
Yes.
from it? I mean, okay.
Yep.
Okay, I got to check that out because I was like, that sounds like it'd be goddamn cool. Sounds like it would be awesome. So I definitely got to check that out. But Overture was such a good way to get it started. And, I feel like that's another thing that I love that artists are doing now is really trying to get back to album construction and sequencing and understanding, like taking the listener through a journey. Because like you can have a huge banger pop album like when we did Dua Lipa, and like that album I don't think sequencing necessarily played a huge role. It's like, let's just get a bunch of bangers, put them all together and go from there. And then this one is much more of like, let's tell a story with the whole thing. And I love the chances that they take musically. I think keeping it different, varying the genres of music that you use to tell these stories helps keep everything very interesting. Because otherwise you got to do like Sturgill did with the Ballad of Dude and Juanita and go like super hard, super faithful to that one exact genre of music. It's you either got to go way off the reservation and throw a bunch of stuff against the wall or only throw one thing against the wall. And the second you have like an orchestral start to the album, it's like you cannot do that all the way through and have it lyrically land the way that you need these stories to be told. It's just, I feel like they did a great job picking the type of music that needed to be played in the background while these stories were lyrically getting told to us. And just the variation throughout the album kept it so interesting. Even, I mean, it wasn't a long album, but it was like 45 minutes. And that's on the longer end of most of the ones that we do. So it's really nice when you get to the end of it and you don't feel like you've had to just sit down and slog through something.
Well, and that's what's so cool about it too is it does feel longer than 45 minutes to me, but I mean that as a compliment. You lose kind of track of the time, and it's like a DMT trip. It feels really long while you're in it, and then as soon as it's done, you're like, it wasn't a slog. It just felt like this like expansive experience throughout the 45-minute listen. So you're absolutely right. It's like it's perfectly tailored, and you were also right. You can get away with that overture, but then you immediately you can't just, if it had been an entirely like symphonic album, it'd be a way different thing. But that's your first trick. What are you going to dazzle them with next? And this album is great at that.
Yes. And the next song that we picked is Jesus in Your Living Room Floor. And this one is where this is the one that really got me into it. This was like, oh, these lyrics are very interesting. Like this story is going to be like very sad. So like, am I ready for this? It was middle of the day, first time I listened to the album. So it was fine. It was nice and sunny outside. So I was like, yeah, if I get a little depressed here, I got the sun, I got the vitamin D. I'll go out and do some yard work or something. I'll be fine. But it's just like, I love the chorus or the post chorus, I guess is what they call it, is I pledge allegiance to Jesus in your living room floor. And it's just this way that centers you immediately in the storyteller's shoes. Like it just makes it so that you see it the way that they are. It's just a really interesting album. I mean, it is a concept album. There's some like kind of stuff off the wall here and there, but it very much has a central theme of, death, how people deal with it, how people cause it. It's just like a very much a small town kind of snapshot like of some people's lives. And it's hard to like say that without talking about the next songs. 'Cause the next few that we're going to talk about are going to go directly into this storytelling and why it's so good and why this story is so engrossing. But it starts with Jesus in your living room floor. The verse 1, when I finally die, won't you bury me in the same suit that you married her in? Tell them I was murdered by a gun, found, taken down by my long lost son. So now it's like, okay, we have some family drama. We have some long standing issues that have come to a head here. What are these issues? And I love when stories, whether it's movies or albums or TV shows, whatever it is, like presents you with kind of what has happened and then helps lead you through why it happened. You know, and I don't like that all the time, but when it's done well, it's a very interesting way to tell a story because you know the conclusion. What's interesting is how you get there. You know, that's the whole point. And I love that they start out with this one because I feel like this song just sets up the rest of the album so perfectly.
This is another reason why I really loved this album is it's very direct but totally open to interpretation and abstract at the same time. Because you can sit there and you can look for like literal meaning in some of the lines. Like some of them, again, are direct. Like you said, it's got to send you where you're going. But then a lot of them have these abstractions to them that you know meant something to Haley Dahl, but it's not being spelled out for you. And that means that you're supposed to interpret it. And it can mean many different things to whoever's listening. And I got these, if we're talking about it like a wine tasting, it's got a very oaky afterbirth.
Afterbirth.
I can't take credit for that. That's The Office. Right as I dovetail right back into what I got out of the song, which is murder as metaphor for betrayal and desperation. There's a quotation from Haley Dahl that kind of set this whole thing up for me. The album was a grand gesture to someone I was trying to make love me. So I think it's like in this one for me, it's murder as metaphor for romantic betrayal. Mm-hmm. You killed me because this love broke me down, and I'm rotting in self-loathing and despair and unrequited love. And there's that line. I see it as like this very panicked instinct to fake an incident that would garner sympathy. Now every night I dream of new answers, of crying in limousines, of faking brain cancer. I think of something like that, and it's like, is she in this moment considering, like, if I tell him he has cancer, he'll feel bad for me, he'll come back? Like, your brain can run absolutely wild with these lyrics and get... It's not I Am the Fucking Walrus. It's a cohesive story, but what the context really is totally up to you. It's like, again, one of the coolest fucking things this album does.
Mm-hmm. And they also, remember this part, when she says, covered in ants in my room on the floor, still clutching that same old plastic horse. So remember that as we go through the next few songs here. So the next one, Judy's Bedroom, is one that you selected.
This one was an interesting, if we're going to steer into the musical, the light musical comedy, and we're going to steer into the structure of Gilbert and Sullivan or some kind of light operetta like that. This song had a gruesome, almost like Manson family quality to it, because it's about a real murder, but it also functioned as like a folk song almost. So it's like, you know, Dooley skipping down the holler. It's got one of those like handed down through the generations folk song. Or what's the one from the Hunger Games? The Hanging Tree?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Something like that everybody would know and could snap into. This has the feel of a song that ostensibly you should know. It's like 1-2, Freddy's Coming for You. It's like an old, not necessarily a nursery rhyme, but an old folk song. And it sounds like it's straight out of the 70s, which is when this woman was killed. And it just, again, it has that creepy Manson family quality to it, like creepy calliope music, but it's about murder. It's about a woman being killed by her husband. So again, it's just this like morbid rumination on love and how love totally fucking destroys people, kills them dead. But it's set to like jaunty organ grinder vibes. It's very weird.
And what's really weird, the second verse, when she says it was painted blue in Judy Bruce's bedroom, she had chosen ribbons for her hair, and then the background vocals like, "Aw." Like, we're talking about a pretty bad murder here.
Yeah,
you know. And it's just like you said. It does like the lyrical content does not match the kind of musical rendition, I guess, that like musical feeling, I suppose. But it still works. Like, it's not as if it's a bad thing that they're a total dichotomy between the two of them, but it's like it definitely works. But it is such a, especially that chorus where it's just like
Yeah.
la 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 la, wow wow wow,
La 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 la. Like, it's so morbid because of that.
yeah. It's like Ring Around the Rosie when you like really listen to it. It's like, wow, that's fucked up.
La
Like,
la
little kids
la
were singing
la
that.
la la la. I hear the fucking Manson family singing it.
Yeah, and like Judy does whatever she pleases because she's with Jesus now.
That's some cold-blooded shit, man.
Yeah.
Again, it's sort of that, like, yeah, a tisket, a tasket, a green and yellow basket, London Bridge is falling down, like, Ring Around the Rosie. It just has this
Yeah.
like totally morbid, folky sensibility to it. It's such a weird little song. I could not pick it.
Yeah, it was a very good one. And this was one of those ones where you texted so goddamn early in the day. Just I know to get your picks in there because you knew I would have picked this one because it's a great song. This one definitely one of my favorite ones on the album. Just because it was such an interest, like musically it's one you could listen to all the time, and then it's deep enough lyrically that it's like it's going to remain interesting for you.
So
Now,
what was
Wilt
Mm-hmm.
is the next one. So this one, I'm just going to read some of the lyrics and it's going to tell you everything you need to know about this song. My misery will bury you, and I'm so sorry that I'm scaring you. But what was I supposed to do as opposed to loving you? So it's like that same feeling you get from Jesus in your living room floor. It's like they're going to do anything to keep this person, whether it's lying about brain cancer, stuff like that. It's like there is just nothing they're going to shy away from in order to try to keep this person, no matter how bad it may make them look. It's just like they can't see any other way to exist other than with this person.
Well, and it's this love is a corrupting force, and I don't even mean it as a toxic relationship, because there are only brief periods in the next song we'll talk about in particular where it sounds like it could be potentially a relationship steeped in like gaslighting and emotional abuse and stuff like that. But up to this point, it really more seems like this other person just doesn't love Haley Dahl back. And like she said up top, this is her attempt to get somebody to love her in spite of all odds, because this person's never going to love her. And it's that kind of despair where you know that, but you're not going to stop trying anyway. And the definition of insanity is doing it over and over again and expecting a different result. And that turns her into this horrible, miserable person who loves this other person so much she can't leave their orbit. So her self-inflicted misery is just collapsing both of them in on themselves. Mm-hmm. It's dragging them both down.
Yeah, I also just loved the music in this one. Like, it was very much, it matched the lyrical subject matter. I love when songs do that. Like the song Wilt, they're not talking about Wilt Chamberlain. They're talking about flowers wilting. So you've got roses on the brain, but I'm all wilt. So it's just an interesting way to use it. And musically, I feel like the music kind of goes down in that line when you get to the word wilt. So it's almost like musically, it's also wilting. Like everything, she does such a good job at making sure that the emotions are always have some reinforcements. Whatever she's trying to get across lyrically, she has those reinforcements musically that make everything land that much stronger and make you really consider what it is she's saying to you. And I think that's such an interesting way to write songs. I think Phoebe Bridgers does that really well, where it's like making sure that she makes a lot of noise when it's time to make a lot of noise, but when it's time to tell the story and explain why it is she's writing these songs, they're just both so good at making sure that they don't overshadow any one part of the music with any other part of the music. It's just such a well-balanced kind of production that they do with it. And it's just, I don't know, I guess writing an overture, which I'm sure that's not something that already existed. She composed that herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, that is a doing that, I feel like, is almost like the peak of musical theory and musical talent, is being able to compose something like that, like a multi-part instrumental, and have it be that interesting. So it doesn't surprise me that when she's writing, a basic pop song, a basic rock song, whatever you want to call it, that musically it's going to be astounding, because it doesn't need to be complicated. But I think just the understanding that it takes to do something very complicated means you understand how to uncomplicate things. And I love that no part of this was tough to unpack, but it was still a very complex story and very complex emotions that are getting portrayed here.
And again, the sound that takes place here, you bring up Phoebe Bridgers. This is the one that reminded me a lot of Kyoto. But the difference is, and this is not a dig on Phoebe Bridgers at all, Kyoto, when she breaks into those like giant bursts, like you said, where she's just like, she knows when to be loud. So specifically the chorus of Kyoto, where it just kicks into that second gear and she opens up, through the very nature of production, because you're not seeing it live, through the very nature of studio production, there's only so far that sound is going to go, right? It's always, there's kind of a glass ceiling over the sound when it's produced like that. But when you're recording it in a fucking cave, and this shit can echo off the walls, it's a Phoebe Bridgers-esque indie rock sound that is entirely Haley Dahl's. I don't mean to like take that away from her and give it to Phoebe Bridgers, but this was such an interesting experiment because it is the most straightforward indie girl sounding song, but the element that completely changes it is how limitless recording in the cave makes it sound. Makes this song sound absolutely fucking enormous. You get swallowed up in the emotional content of it because the song is just so fucking big.
Mm-hmm. And what an interesting idea. Like, have any other albums been recorded in caves?
I hope Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds did it at least once, because that's money left on the table if they didn't.
Yeah. I think they got plenty of money since they did that theme song to Peaky Blinders.
Oh my God. Red Right Hill.
Ding. I mean, the song fucks.
The song fucks.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush here, but
no.
they make plenty of money every time that gets played.
Yep.
That's for
and I don't
sure.
like that show, but get that bag, Nick Cave.
Yeah, see, I mean, it's not that I love that show. There's other shows I love more. Like, it's not on the pantheon with like The Wire, or Sopranos, or any of those, obviously, or even Breaking Bad. But it is a very enjoyable show to watch.
Fair enough.
Because they're always fighting. They're always drinking. People are getting shot. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very entertaining. Yeah.
Kind of like life in our hometown.
Yeah. Now, the song, and I'm glad, hope everybody's set aside the next hour of their lives for us to talk about this one here, The Constable, one of your picks. When I saw there was a 9-minute song on the album, and then I heard it, and I really loved it, I was not surprised at all when you chose it as one of yours. You picked the two, like, I think my two favorite ones, Judy's Bedroom and The Constable, on the album. Not that I've minded talking about the other ones because they were also great. But man, oh man, you want to talk about Tom Waits? Like, this is exactly what I was talking about on this one.
That's my first note on here.
Holy Toledo. What a song this is.
I have Tom Waits underlined 3 times.
Yeah.
And then I specifically have in the margin written on the nickel as a specific Tom Waits reference. Mm-hmm. Because that's a song that I like borderline can't listen to, even though it's like perfect and it's so well crafted, but it makes me so fucking sad, especially that line, what becomes of little boys when they run away from home? The world gets so much bigger when you're out there on your own. I'm just like, gah! Listening to that in New York City, just shitting myself. Like, I'm the little boy. But like, this is a song that very much in that vein fucked me right up. It is that same Tom Waits, even if it wasn't just the sound, it's a great storytelling parallel, because his kind of like macabre Tin Pan Alley storytelling style is what makes him unique. And it's that same kind of thing going on here. And it's the first thing that like drew my eye is this first sequence here. You happened years ago now, but yesterday I saw a man kicking a dog in the street. And from the distance, I thought that you might be the man. And God, I wanted that dog to be me. And when she says, and God, she doesn't just go, and God, I wanted that dog to be me. It is this guttural, primal sound, God, from inside of her, to the point where I go, was this guy an abusive asshole, or is this an emotional metaphor for the fact that she feels like she's being abused because he doesn't love her back, but at least someone she loves is abusing her? So she like emotionally equating the man kicking the dog with this guy not loving her, and the dog being loyal and kind of sitting there and taking it with her coming back for more every time. We're fucking like 30 seconds into the song and you're already picking through all of that. It's that kind of song.
Yeah. And the line, because some dogs sure do know how to bleed. Like, just some people will take that abuse and others won't. And she's one of the people that will, and she knows that's a bad thing, but she's still willing to do it. Like, it's just, there's so much honesty in this, but it's not like you feel terrible for her sort of honesty or anything. It's like, that she is fully well aware of all the things that she's done that are wrong, that have been wrong done to her. She's very well aware of all that stuff. It's not as if she's naive to anything that she's talking about here, but it's still acknowledging that human emotion, that it's like, if that's a person you had a connection with and you really, really love them, no matter what they do, it's going to take an act of God for you to see the light that everybody else does and why they're bad for you. And it's going to take a lot for you to understand that they're the wrong person for you. And so it's like, you see these things and it's like, until that point is proven to you, you're always going to wonder, until it reaches whatever point it is when, maybe when she's actually dead, metaphorically, I guess, that's when it would finally be far enough for her to get it and let this thing go.
Well, and then again, just the most gruesome, gross lyrics that we've got going here. So this whole thing is structured very strange because it's so long. There's not really chorus and all that stuff. It just kind of keeps moving in chronological fashion. So this line, it was early this morning when I opened my eyes to find that I couldn't see. So I ran out the driveway straight into the highway and slammed my head against the concrete. There was 1,000 pink slugs out of my open skull. It was then I remembered the constable. A once handsome horse rusted into a toy, just as I, a great man, have grown into a scared little boy. 1,000 pink slugs. She's talking about getting hit by a fucking car, and her brain has cracked open, or her skull is cracked open, her brain is leaking onto the pavement, and she's having this, like, death vision. Goddamn, genius lyrics keeps fucking scaring the shit out of me.
Yeah.
She's having this like last death vision. One of the things I have the hardest time unpacking is the constable and the horse toy, because the horse toy recurs through the whole thing. And it's those 3 lines, like, I'm man enough to admit that, like, I'm still chewing over those. I don't know what that means, because I just see her like in the rain staring up at the sky, like, this is so gruesome, but bleeding out of the back of her skull, like dying and having this like dying thought. And I want to understand it so badly. I just haven't found my way in yet.
I think the horse toy represents like her innocence, and not innocence in like, before she ever did anything wrong. Innocence in the sense that like the version of her that isn't affected by these things, because the horse is always there. She's going through these like metamorphoses, like these changes, where she's realizing how wrong she's been treated. The horse is there when she feels like she's been killed, because of that betrayal. The horse is there when she's actually been killed, with her brain spilling out across the highway. The horse is there. So I think the horse is representative of the part of her that never wanted to be a part of any of this. So it's like, it's always there because she always knew that it was not the right thing to feel the way that she does, to continually want to be with this person that doesn't love her or abused her. And that's another clever thing, is never being totally clear about that. never being totally clear about whether it was an abusive situation or, like you said, he just didn't love her, didn't love her back the way that she loved him. I think to me, that's what the horse represents, because it just popped up at those points where that realization should come in, where that realization that, like, reclaim the part of you that existed before all of this, before all of this pain and all this suffering that you've either had visited upon you or visited upon yourself. I think to me that's what it is.
I could see that. And then we've got obviously the album cover with her holding the blue horse up and making a little shadow with it. And I think what you're saying about the horse toy dovetails with another note that I have written down here, which is a cave is a place of safety, but it's also a place of ignorance, because you can hide safely in your cave in the dark, but that same darkness is going to keep you completely ignorant of what's going on in the world outside of you. So it's this catch-22. And I feel like that the cave imagery, the horse imagery, all of that, recording it in a cave in and of itself is all metaphor for her retreating into herself, trying to process all of this, trying to make someone love her. This is a musical about unrequited love, trying to make someone love you, and it doesn't work, and how stage by stage you grapple with that. And this is one of the most unhinged, hopeless, like all is lost moment songs on the album. There are moments where it's like very prim but like grim and recitative, and then it turns into these like big emotional tangents, these huge outbursts, these different moments that reflect different emotional states. She's just like hitting all the highs and lows. Mm-hmm. In 9 fucking minutes it's in there. It's a fucking absolute barn burner.
Yeah, and it goes right into, I mean, it's a 9-minute song. There's that guttural scream at the beginning of it is like just one of the least weird parts of the whole thing. If that tells you anything about just kind of how off the wall this whole experience is. But then it goes right into the epilogue, which is, I think, such a perfect closer for this, because it takes you back down from that emotion of the constable. And I think this is where we get, I don't know if we get as much resolution as we should here, but we do get some. It's especially the line, "The next time you see me, won't you tell me to leave you alone? Then maybe I can finally go." And I think that's what we've been touching on this entire album, is she knows she needs to let this person go. She knows she needs to get herself out of this situation. But, and I think we've all been there, whether it's in a romantic situation or just something you had faith in for too long before you realized that it didn't deserve your time and effort, whatever it might be, romantically or not, everybody knows what that feeling is like, having to let something go that you have poured your heart into. And she still doesn't have the strength to just do it on her own. That's what kind of power that emotion can hold over you. And it, again, not even just romantically, like some people, you get so deep into something that you try so hard to make it work that you feel like you are lying to yourself by giving up on that. Mm-hmm. That you've convinced yourself that this is a inevitability, and you just need to keep trying and keep chipping away at that wall, because eventually you're going to get through, even though you know better. And I think that's such a good way to end this album, is like acknowledging that she knows better, but not really promising that she's going to do any better.
That's a great way of putting it. And it's, to follow our cave metaphor, she's coming out of the cave slowly but surely on this one, out of, ignorance of her own, like of the conclusion that she needs to come to, that this entire album was about coming to. Everything we've experienced up to this point leads to her realizing what you said, which is she's not strong enough to quit this person, even though it's destroying her. So she has to try to find some kind of resolution. Even if you can't get over the person, you have to figure out some kind of resolution to the way things are going now, because it's not sustainable. So what's the obvious answer? This person remains in your life, and you just have to get over the fact that you won't be with them romantically, but at least you still get to have them in your life. And what kind of sends that home to me is the final lines of the song. You showed up at my funeral wearing boots and underwear. Didn't say anything unusual, just asked what I was doing there. Well, I'm hiding from the man I hit with my car. Yeah, I'm hiding from the man that I hit with my car. And this was a line, this last part, I rewound it a bunch. I just like chewed it over in my head a million times. And to me, this is the solidification of that moment. So in this last song, we've kind of got this like dying vision that she has and like running on the highway. And this kind of like increasingly unhinged final thoughts she's having. And that song, Constable, also just gradually fades away. That's her gradually fading away. And as this song begins, it's almost like, you know, you can leave the cave now, you can go to heaven. And heaven, what's heaven? The best possible outcome. The best possible outcome for her is to keep this person in her life. So I just see something like, you showed up at my funeral, you did something weird, but you didn't have to point it out. That's kind of our rapport. You were there for me. I know it's not in a romantic way, but you're there for me. And it's this absolutely perfect culmination of the whole album. She gets to keep this person in her life, but she had to learn a valuable, painful lesson in front of us for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is.
Yeah. Stream it. Just go stream it. Understand that it is not going to be a typical album, especially if you like, you know, faster, more upbeat, more aggressive kind of music. You know, this is not going to be like anything you really probably listen to generally, but get into it for the story. You know, the same reasons that you listen to The Ballad of Dude and Juanita by Sturgill Simpson, you know, the same reason that, you know, you listen to any real like kind of concept record, you know, get into the story, you know, try to unpack it. You know, if we missed something, and we probably did, there was a lot of very like cryptic things that were said in this album, and, you know, given a few more weeks and more analysis and more discussion, I'm sure we could unpack it all. But we're probably missing some stuff, and I'd certainly love to hear if people got something else about the horse. You know, if the horse meant something else to somebody else. You know, I'd love to hear what you thought about that. So tell us. You know, I think this album is one. You know, a lot of the albums that we do warrant a lot of discussion. You know, they are certainly worthy of, you know, talking about and unpacking and sharing with people. But this one, I think, kind of stands on its own, at least as far as ones we've done recently, that you really should sit there, take in the story as much as you take in the music. Like, really try to follow along and see what you get out of it. Because I got a lot out of this one.
Yeah, and that's what's cool, is you will get something distinct out of it. This is not a very literal album, but it's also not incomprehensible, you know, Captain Beefheart kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's purposeful, it's direct, like we said, but in like very much in the style of David Lynch, where he's telling a story. There are just elements of it that he's not spoon feeding to you that are going to impact. Like you said, we arrive at a conclusion. It's how we get there. Everyone's going to get there a different way. And this album is very much an exercise in that. Is you'll wind up at the same place that is promised at the beginning, but the trip that you take along the way, much like your life itself, is going to be completely unique to you. And I think that's a huge fucking feat for a musical album to do.
Mm-hmm.
Stream it. It was so good, it made me forget to bring up Frank Zappa until this very moment.
Well, you did it.
You
did it, my friend.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, this stable of artists around like the Dead Oceans, and what is the Phoebe Bridgers imprint called?
Saddest Factory.
You know, that stable of musicians they have circling around those two places is really incredible right now. Like, really incredible.
Yeah, just that whole crew. I mean, Connor Oberst, Phoebe Bridgers, the Boy Genius is an outfit,
Mm-hmm.
Lucy Dacus, Julian Baker. Now we got Sloppy Jane. Like, there's a lot of shit going on. And Sarah Tudson, Illuminati Hottie's not affiliated with that group super closely, but she is linked to Lucy Dacus. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the Dead Ocean Satisfactory Indie Explosion expanded universe.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking, and they're all pretty young too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like that's also cool, is they're all going to be hopefully making music for years and years to come and fodder for future episodes. So, it's just I'm glad we have that available, because there's the big, huge pop release albums like the Billie Eilish stuff, the Dua Lipa last year when that came out, there's the huge releases for that kind of music. And those are always fun, especially if they're good, like Adele's album this year. But it's nice to have those mid-level ones where they get a little weird, where it's not really meant for a massive public consumption. Maybe they might happen to hit something like Phoebe Bridgers did with Kyoto. Like that song got pretty famous. But it's nice to have this stable of artists that understand that they just want to push themselves artistically. It's almost like that, you always hear about Laurel Canyon back in like the 60s. I feel like this is that same kind of thing, but just for like indie rock music instead of folk music. I think that's what this Dead Oceans and Satisfactory kind of universe is creating, is just a very receptive, reflective environment that you can go into, get your ideas, bounce them off people, get some more ideas from them. And just, it seems very collaborative as well, which is always nice, because it's like not any one person is going to have the best ideas. Someone can have a great idea for a central theme, but then need some help putting it together. And it seems like that is the environment that's getting built at both of these record labels. And it's a really good way, I think, to make music. It should be collaborative because it's the only universal language.
And there's no point like fighting with one another. I think I've told the story on here. Frank Zappa, his guitar player basically got poached by David Bowie, and Frank Zappa and David Bowie were just gigantic assholes to each other over it. And it's like, can't we all just get along? And that's what this generation of musicians is doing. It's not competition. They're like, well, we can all work together. We can all help each other. We all genuinely like each other. And an album like this, like Madison, I think is going to prove landmark for this crew, because specifically for Satisfactory, it's going to show that this label is not about homogeneity. You can get something that's this flavored. You can get something that's Phoebe Bridgers, and they're not afraid to like bring a lot of different things. It's not like, well, Death Row is hip hop, and that's what it is. There's a lot that can fit under this label, and I think that's a tremendously smart move to just like make it a breeding ground for people who are doing groundbreaking shit.
Yep. Yeah, that is. And it's like, you think about the huge record labels like CBS Records way back in the day, RCA Records, like the massive ones, Capitol Records, like the big guys, that had the big time executives and everything. Like that's over. They're still obviously going to exist, but the way that people can consume music nowadays is like, you can just put up, like, would we have ever found somebody like Heather Trost 15 years ago?
Fuck no.
Unless we were at like Buke Spieler digging through used CDs or something. No way. No chance. But now because of social media and the internet, this stuff gets disseminated so much more quickly. And it's like, it's easy because it's like, oh, well, I love that Phoebe Bridgers album. This is somebody that's associated with her. Let me check that out. It's so much easier to find these things, and especially Spotify. Like the weirder you get on Spotify, the weirder the suggestions are going to be. If you only listen to one genre, you're only going to get one genre. But if you listen to multiple things, Spotify is going to be like, try this. This person knew this person back in 1983, so they did something together back then. Try this one out. It's like it makes a much bigger spider web, the way that we consume music these days and the way that music is produced. And it's also the shrinking down of studio equipment makes it possible to make a recording in a cave. And it doesn't have to be a big feature movie production like Live at Pompeii was for Pink Floyd. That was like a groundbreaking thing to do a field recording like that. Now it's possible because you've got recorders that can fit in your pocket.
Yeah.
Back then it was like the size of a car. So it's like it makes it so much more accessible for people to make music that it's like, think about the amount of talent there probably was in the 50s and 60s, but just had no access to distribution, no access to put that talent out there. And now we get record labels like Dead Oceans and Satisfactory and people like that are just putting out these crazy individualistic albums, that each one is different than the other. Like think of how close like Lucy Dacus and Julian Baker and Phoebe Bridgers are as people. think about how different all of those albums were, even though they worked together. It's like, that is such a perfect representation of what this like movement and record labels and indie music is doing. I really, really love it.
Yeah, same here. The future's very bright, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I think we got to wrap this one up. I think we're bumping right up against our usual time here. So, going to do a little housekeeping here. Give us your submissions for that end of the year episode. Get them to us on Instagram, @OutOnThatLine, on Twitter, @OutOnThatLine1. You can get us through email, outonthatline@gmail.com. And where else can you find us, Alex?
You can find us on the YouTube. That's like our big happening. That's like it's my kind of happening, and it freaks me out, baby. We got a lot popping off on the YouTube. You search #OutOnThatLine on the old YT. You find our way over to our channel, where we've got a lot of goodies for you. We got reaction videos. We got singles. We got the podcast. It's truly like the Bradley Cooper movie, Limitless. So come on down.
Yeah, make sure you go check it out. Let us know what you want to hear. And until next time.